The air inside the courtroom was electric. Cameras flashed like lightning, journalists hunched over their notepads, and every seat in the gallery was filled. The judge's gavel struck down with a crack that echoed through the room, silencing. The buzz. On one side sat Melania Trump, dressed immaculately, chin tilted upward, radiating confidence. To her, this was just another performance. She believed she had already won before the trial even began. Her legal team whispered with certainty, and her smirk seemed carved in stone. On the other side sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, calm, collected, with the quiet determination of someone who had nothing to prove but everything to protect. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for a principle bigger than either woman in that room. The case had been hyped for weeks. Networks branded it the trial of dignity versus privilege. Millions were watching the live stream, waiting to see Crockett crumble under the weight of Melania's legal firepower. But what happened next would shock the world, because in just 9 seconds, a single witness would walk into that courtroom, open their mouth, and completely shatter the legacy Melania Trump had spent decades building. To understand the magnitude of this moment, you have to know how it began. Melania Trump had filed a lawsuit against Jasmine Crockett, claiming that the Congresswoman's fiery words had defamed her, humiliated her, and tarnished her carefully polished image. According to Melania, Crockett had crossed an unforgivable line, questioning her integrity in public and daring to challenge the myth of her untouchable grace. But this wasn't just about harsh words. This case was about power. Melania wasn't suing because she was truly wounded. She was suing to remind the world that her name, her wealth, and her status could silence even the boldest voices. It was about intimidation, a message to anyone else who might dare to call out hypocrisy. Crockett, however, refused to bend. She walked into the courtroom not with the arrogance of wealth, but with the quiet confidence of truth. She knew she didn't have Melania's resources, her global brand, or her family name. What she had was her record of service, her relentless courage, and her belief that justice was still worth fighting for. The stakes were staggering. If Melania won, it would send a chilling message to every lawmaker, activist, and citizen who dared to speak truth to power. If Crockett prevailed, it would be a crack in the armor of privilege itself. The cameras zoomed in as Melania's team laid out their arguments, presenting her as the eternal victim of unfair attacks. And the media, already primed to see a spectacle, leaned into the narrative that Crockett was in over her head. But the world didn't know what was coming, because one witness, a figure nobody expected, was about to take the stand. And in just 9 seconds, the direction of this trial, and perhaps Melania's carefully constructed legacy, would never be the same. To fully grasp why this moment shook the world, we have to look at the myth of Melania Trump. For years, she had been portrayed as the silent, elegant figure in the background of chaos. Photographers captured her in designer gowns. Headlines framed her as a woman of mystery, a modern-day Mona Lisa with a guarded smile. She became a brand, a symbol, a polished mask, but behind that mask was something different. Former staffers whispered about arrogance, about a disdain for those she considered beneath her. Reports trickled out about cold dismissals, sharp words, and a constant obsession with image over substance. She cultivated perfection, the flawless wardrobe, the stoic gaze, the aura of someone untouchable, and that was her power. Melania wasn't just a person. She was a carefully curated product, a walking brand of privilege. Her lawsuit against Jasmine Crockett was more than a legal move. It was a performance, a statement that even the First Lady's shadow carried weight enough to crush her critics. She believed the courtroom would be another stage where she could bend truth into her favor. That was the setup. The illusion of untouchability, which is exactly why her unraveling would be so unforgettable. Jasmine Crockett's story couldn't be more different. Born and raised in a working-class family, she grew up knowing the value of persistence. Her path wasn't paved with privilege, it was carved through hard work, sacrifice, and an unshakable belief in fairness. She became a lawyer not for glamour, but to defend the voiceless, the overlooked, the ones who couldn't afford high-powered representation. When she entered politics, it wasn't to polish her image. It was to fight, to hold power accountable, no matter the name, no matter the office. Her voice was sharp, her arguments precise, and her reputation quickly grew as someone who didn't just speak truth to power, she dismantled it. By the time she faced Melania in court, Crockett had already been through countless battles. But this one was different. This wasn't just about defending herself. It was about defending the right of every ordinary person to stand against the mighty. Her calm presence in that courtroom wasn't an act. It was who she was. Unshaken, undistracted, unafraid. And when the witness finally stepped forward, it wasn't luck that saved her. It was the fact that she had built a life rooted in truth. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every voice silenced by power. The tension hit its peak as Melania's legal team unleashed their barrage. They painted Crockett as reckless, irresponsible, a woman who had no respect for dignity or privacy. They accused her of using Melania's name for clout, of dragging the former First Lady through the mud for political gain. The words were sharp, the tone ruthless. To the casual observer, it seemed Crockett was cornered. But through it all, Jasmine sat steady. Her responses were measured, her tone calm, her eyes unflinching. While Melania's lawyers grew louder, more theatrical, Crockett's quiet confidence cut through like a scalpel. The judge watched. The gallery held its breath. Still, momentum seemed to favor Melania. Every blow landed harder, every accusation louder. The media whispered that the underdog had met her match, and then everything changed, because the next person to walk into that courtroom would silence the noise and the theatrics, and flip the entire trial upside down. The doors creaked open, and in walked the witness. Nobody expected them. Not Melania's team, not the press, not even many in the gallery. A hush fell as they took the stand. Melania's smirk faltered for the first time. The judge asked them to speak. And in just 9 seconds they did. Their testimony was direct, undeniable, and devastating. With calm clarity, they revealed evidence that contradicted Melania's entire narrative. A statement so precise, so irrefutable, that the courtroom froze. Gasps filled the air. Journalists scrambled to type. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Crockett allowed herself the faintest smile. Knowing the truth had finally surfaced, Melania, once untouchable, was rattled. Her confidence drained from her face, replaced with a flicker of panic she couldn't disguise. Decades of careful image-making shattered in real time. It wasn't long speeches or fiery arguments that did it. It was 9 seconds of truth delivered so powerfully that not even her wealth, her lawyers, or her reputation could shield her. And in that moment, everyone watching knew Melania Trump's legacy had cracked. Live, on camera, forever. The trial adjourned, but the real battle moved online. Within minutes, clips of the 9-second testimony flooded social media. Hashtags like hashtag 9 seconds to truth and hashtag Crockett vs. Trump trended worldwide. Memes mocked Melania's stunned expression, while commentators dissected every syllable of the witness's words. News outlets replayed the footage on loop. Pundits called it a turning point. For years, Melania had existed as an untouchable brand. Now, in less than 10 seconds, she was human, vulnerable, and exposed. Celebrities tweeted their support for Crockett. Activists hailed the moment as proof that truth could still win. Even a handful of conservatives admitted, reluctantly, that Melania's mask had slipped. Her carefully cultivated legacy wasn't just questioned. It was shattered. When Jasmine Crockett stepped outside the courtroom, microphones swarmed her. Reporters shouted questions, begging for a soundbite, but Crockett didn't gloat. She didn't mock. Instead, she spoke with dignity. "This was never about me versus her," she said. "This was about truth versus privilege, about whether power gets to silence honesty." And today, truth won. Her words echoed far beyond the courthouse steps, because in the end, this trial wasn't about Melania's image or Crockett's resilience. It was about a bigger message, that authenticity will always outlast performance, that dignity will always outshine arrogance, that no matter how polished the mask, truth has a way of breaking through. For millions watching, it wasn't just political theater. It was a reminder America doesn't need perfect icons. It needs fearless truth-tellers. And so the headline was written, "Melania Trump sued Jasmine Crockett, but her witness shattered her legacy in 9 seconds." What began as a courtroom showdown ended as a cultural earthquake. The legacy Melania spent years crafting crumbled in less than a breath. And Jasmine Crockett walked away not just as a survivor, but as a symbol. If you believe justice deserves a voice, share this story. Let others know that no matter how powerful the opponent, truth can still win. Subscribe for more stories where arrogance meets its match and dignity always has the last word. Because this is just the beginning.